Thursday, May 29th. Welcome back to Damon Bruce Plus, brought to you by Ike's Sandwiches, our good friends at the Dubliner as well. And that, speaking of good friends, is Sam Batesh, thinking out loud. That's our guy. Good to see you again, Sammy. How are you?
Oh, it's so good. I mean, it was sad that I felt like I should have been with you Memorial Day weekend. You had an amazing time away. You really celebrated. You were truly doing what Americans should do on Memorial Day. And
I was watching a World II movie, eating apple pie the Sunday before Memorial Day. I mean, because what more can I possibly do for the cause? You know,
that's it. You nailed it. You were draped in an American flag, and I wish I could have been there with you and the boys and Jillian. And one day we will. We will get Levi and Jack and Ozzy together. That is on of all the bucket list items in my life. This has been moved up. This has been moved up. Maybe. Yes, Magic Castle or anywhere else. We're gonna make it happen. Or maybe a night. You know what? Yeah, maybe a Niner. By the way, I'll sip to that. Maybe a Niners game. Maybe we'll put together. Have the boys been to a football game?
I wouldn't bring anyone I liked to a San Francisco 49ers game. That's how much I hate that stadium.
Okay, so guess what? You offered me, and we're going to get to Purdy here in a second, everybody. Trust me. Who loves Purdy more than us? By the way, I swear his parents must be funding the show. It's amazing. So
I asked Jillian the other day, who stands on our front porch more? Friends, family, or the UPS guy? The UPS guy, who, by the way, his name is Claudio. Both my kids love him. He knows the name of both boys. They say hello to each other. They wave at each other 4 times a day throughout the front window. This guy is a member of our family, and Brock Purdy has basically become a member of our family as well.
And I was
stop talking about him.
And I was going to say, so you don't want to take anyone to a Niners game. We should make it a college football game. You and I both agree going to a college football game is 1,000 times better experience than going to an NFL game. Only because we love NFL on TV so much. It's just such an epic experience.
Jillian.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Big Ten, USC. When is Indiana playing in LA again? I was down there for the game against UCLA. Next time they're at USC. Maybe this is a college basketball weekend, but this is going to happen for sure. And I got to be honest with you. The 49ers watch parties that I do here on YouTube are going to maybe prevent me from ever actually going to another football game again because I'm doing the damn watch party. So,
but that's okay because you know what? The NFL experience is about watching on TV. And I mean, ask the league, obviously, they're not worried about the 50,000 people in seats. They're worried about the 50 million that are watching on TV. That's where the 100%. Experience is. So yeah, so we're all in on that. All right. But yeah,
that absolutely opens up the door to our very first topic here today, because look, I spent a lot of time on radio. I know how to prep for a show. I know how to talk to your co-host before a show starts. You and I, we text back and forth what our topics will be before we hop onto a show. And then, you know, we don't our vacation isn't so full on our itinerary where we don't have room for spontaneity.
Yes.
But we know what we're going to talk about. And that is just us here on YouTube. That was us on radio. If you and I were sitting in a TV studio, not only would you and I know what we're going to talk about, but 4 cameramen, 3 producers, a director, a floor manager, everyone would know what we were about to do and talk about, because we will have had an hour-long meeting before the show even started about what we're about to do.
It is intense, and it is very pointed and specific. And just to explain what this is. So you and I obviously have been in radio. We're radio lifers. I just want to explain to the audience why those meetings happen. They don't just happen for Damon and I to understand what the topics are. When you watch TV and you see things flash on the screen, and I did this for years, I took it for granted. I just thought, oh, wow, the TV is sort of like what AI generating, what happens on there.
Right. No. Graphic that just happens to be what we're talking about.
There's an entire department dedicated to understanding what's going to be discussed so that those folks that work in that department can actually write out exactly what you want on the screen based on those topics. So all of that has to be detailed ahead of time. Continue.
So since there's such a concentration on detail, why is there a clear choice to let, and it's often a former professional athlete, go on there, just flap his gums and be wrong about everything that he's saying? But because you're a former professional athlete, there's going to be more weight and gravity given to it. There's going to be more deference by the co-hosts on set given to it, where so often they're at the center of what's wrong on today's show. And what really pisses me off, and again, we're about to talk about TJ Houshmandzadeh and what he said about Brock Purdy as the example. And I like TJ Houshmandzadeh. I would not call him a gum-flapping idiot, Kendrick Perkins, desperate to just be trending on Twitter or anything like that. That is not who he is. But I really believe if you walk into any single network, no matter what they cover, no matter what their slant is, no matter what their biases, perceived or real, may be, if you walked into any network executive's office and said, I can guarantee you double the ratings getting shit wrong all day long, or you'll have half the ratings and be accurate and well-researched, and it'll be a smart show, they would choose double the ratings being wrong, not just some of the time, every time. And that, to me, is why I think there's such a massive faith break with what we call traditional media, because it's not about getting the story straight. It's just about getting people to watch.
And look, two guys who make a ton of money and I know very well and really like a lot. So I want to talk about Stephen A. Smith for a second, because what he does is tremendous, and I so respect the arc of his career. I mean, you think about, look, to be writing about the Sixers and essentially, following Iverson through that run. And that was really that sort of branded the first piece of his career. And to be where he is now, just congratulations, Stephen A. Really. I mean, he's done an amazing job of it. But because he is boisterous in what he says and committed to saying things that can be flippant at times, he's been able and given the wand to speak about absolutely anything. So anytime Stephen A. gets something wrong, I actually say to people, can you imagine how difficult it is that he has to have an opinion if the Mariners do something interesting? Like, do you understand how hard it is to have a passionate opinion about every single thing that happens in sports? It's a long way from just understanding what the relationship was between Larry Brown and Allen Iverson, right? Like that's a long way from that. So it's impressive. The other guy I want to talk about, who I'm also friendly with and worked a long time with at Fox, Colin Cowherd. Colin brilliantly came up with this segment where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong. He loves pointing out to everyone, I don't get it right. I say a lot. I can't possibly be right all the time. And in fact, I'm not afraid. So you don't have to pretend that you've caught me on something, because I'm going to tell you every week what I was wrong about. At least there's an honesty in that. It is my favorite thing that he does.
But I'll also say this, for a guy who definitely, he'll pick a bias and he'll ride it as long as he can.
Yes.
And he's clearly picked I'm going to steer into Brock Purdy's lane more than go with the flow of it. And that's what I really believe, that when he sits down to do a show, he's not trying to get shit wrong just for clicks. He just gets things wrong. But the original intention isn't, I'm going to start a fire, a careless fire built with outrage and nonsense, and just see how hot it burns on the internet. Like, he does not do work like that. So I respect him for that. And I'm not saying that that's what TJ Hushmanzada was trying to do in any way, shape, or form. But anyways, for those who do not know what we are talking about, welcome, by the way. Like and subscribe. Hit those things right now on both channels. Thinking Out Loud with Siciliano and Sam, and here, Damon Bruce Plus. Go give love to both channels if you would, please. TJ Hushmanzada. So much. What's that?
And I like him, by the way. I was just going to say TJ Hushmanzada, which, by the way, Hushmanzada is that the greatest? I mean, it's the greatest fantasy football commercial of all time for sure, right? Where the guys
on today, by the way.
Right? I mean, Hushmazili, put it on the championship, put it on the board. That is still one of the greatest of all time. So his name is just iconic with TV already before he had anything to do with what he's doing now at FS1. But continue, and he's also a really great dude to be around. Like, if as far as being around football players and what those personalities can be, he's an awesome, down to the earth dude. Continue.
Good player, really good guest. I've had him on the radio show. I like TJ Hushmanzada. And this is what makes me ask, like, and he's not just some dumb jock. Like, this smart guy.
No. Yes.
How do you sit through in a meeting knowing that you're talking about a segment about Brock without the actual, like, okay, so can you say something to really get us trending here? Because he said, I believe they did overpay for Brock Purdy. TJ Hushmanzada said that on Monday. I would have given Brock Purdy $47 million a year. That would have been the most I'm giving him. We needed you last year. You went 1-6 against playoff teams. We had guys hurt. Christian McCaffrey was out. Trent Williams was out. Ayuk got hurt. But you couldn't really get it done. Now, first of all, he knows more about football to just put it all on the quarterback. That is, that's the spicy showbiz part of it all, right? Yes. And I guess he is right. Brock did not play well against playoff teams, but he wasn't the only one. So to put it all on him is nonsensical. But what really drives me nuts is all you need to do is Google Brock Purdy contract, and it will quickly pop up to let you know that even though the new money is $53 million a year for 5 years, that doesn't factor in the fact he's only making $5 million this year. So really, it's a 6-year, $270 million contract, meaning that the whole thing per year average comes in $2 million less than the number you are balking at right now, TJ. He says it's 47. In reality, it's 45. Researching that, correcting that before he said it would have taken no effort. So why was no effort made? Why did they send him to the podium with a big point to make when it was so easy to figure out how wrong it was?
Because the passion with which he delivered what he said is necessary. In other words, you can commit, and this is a beautiful thing that happened in a room plenty of times with Colin. Actually, Colin would come in with an opinion, and he then challenges the room to steer him off it. In other words, if there's too much information going against it, he'll drop it. I've been in a room where all of a sudden he says, all right, we can't make this work, right? He understands, okay, now we've got sort of square peg, round hole, and it's not going to be that. I came in here thinking one thing, but now that I've been presented the information, it's no longer that way. And yes, that should have been, the dissection of those numbers could have been there for Hoosh. And as you're saying, there is now something incorrect about what was said. But even if, this is where you and I come in, even if you take it for what it's worth, where if you look at the average value of the contract, and we know that Dak leads the list at 60 million and Brock is there at 53, I believe he's 7th on the list. Even if you want to say he's overpaid because of that average number, there you go. You put him up there for everybody. Dak's at 60 million. Burrow's second.
It's
at
like
55.
AI, Sam, that just magically happened.
Yeah, exactly. Who knew we were going to talk about Brock Purdy today? That's weird.
Jeez.
So we got 60 million Dak, 55 for Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Jordan Love, and Trevor Lawrence. Yikes for that paycheck. Then Tua comes in at 53.1, and Brock is 53 even if you go average value, and Goff is tied with Purdy. So it puts him at 7th on the list. You and I have said this so many times. Purdy is not overpaid if he is 7th on this list, considering when he signed the deal. Right. There could have been more money. Now, I did mention this to JT, our buddy JT the Brick, the other day, and he yelled at me. He said, don't give me this. We saved money for other people. Brock Purdy got a lot of money. And of course, none of us are crying for Brock Purdy. He didn't lose money in this deal, but I want to remind everyone, look at that list. Dak is a less recent signing than Brock Purdy, and he's making more money on his deal, significantly more money. Let's not pretend that $7 million wouldn't change everyone in this chat's life, okay? And that's the difference per year of what those two guys are making. The agent could have started there and didn't. And the fact that this number looks more like a 4 than a 5 today, even as far as 40 million and not 50 million, that is a steal. Brock is in a different tier of getting paid as a quarterback than he could have been based on when he signed his deal. And what Hoosh Mansada said was so involved in last season. So I'll give Hoosh credit. He stuck to this part of his argument, which is very smart, Damon. He stuck to the idea that 2024 shouldn't have led to the money. And I can follow that, right? I mean, if you're Brock's agent, you're not going into arbitration saying, look at everything we did in 2024. You're saying, look at everything we did in 2022, 23. We're talking about years that we went to the NFC Championship game, not years that we got blown out in Buffalo and never sniffed the playoffs.
Wouldn't say that, though. I mean, what 49er was proud of the season that just happened? You know, that's not the season that Kyle Shanahan wants to go in and renegotiate with. No one does.
Nope. Nobody does at all. And yet, big money still happens, right? I mean, look, the front office is smart enough to understand that even though it was a shit season, Fred Warner deserves money, Brock Purdy deserves money, George Kittle deserves money, and maybe some of that money came from the fact that Debo is now in Washington.
And the thing is, too, like it wouldn't take very long to research that Brock's season was, of all the things that were part and parcel of the bad year, Brock's performance is no higher than 6th or 7th on that list. You know, I mean, there are a lot of things that went more wrong there, and it just seems like all of that's forgotten about just to make a hot point topic. And I really do feel that Brock Purdy, for some reason that I really don't understand, maybe this is just the price of being the 49ers starting quarterback. Like your burden is heavier when it says shortstop New York Yankees.
Yep.
than when it says shortstop Milwaukee Brewers. I get it. Quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers is rarefied air, man. That is a lonely place to stand. But how wrong people are, how misconstrued, the amount of bad information that they continue to swim around in, when any other point in time, I think this would be viewed as, well, he's gotten off to a remarkably good start. This is a remarkably reasonable contract, but boy, the remarkably good start and reasonable contract thumbnail doesn't get a lot of clicks.
It doesn't. And here's what's interesting though. I want to tie Brock to two people in this league that for everyone should be top of mind. The money last season in the offseason went to Trevor Lawrence and Tua. Those were the two quarterbacks that got paid. They are both higher on the list than what Brock's contract is. And I just want to ask, would John Lynch rather be signing checks that have Brock Purdy's name on it or Trevor Lawrence and Tua? If you're asking him right now, ask fans who wear Trevor's jersey in Jacksonville what they think, and ask fans in Miami who wear Tua jerseys what they think. Neither are excited about the check going out for those guys right now. Brock is 100% a steadier check to write than the two guys I just mentioned. And I don't remember people balking at those deals last season. You know why? They slotted in with when your quarterback is getting signed. No one considers them backup quarterbacks. They're clearly the starter, Trevor and Tua, and Brock is in that category as well. And those are playoff teams, playoff aspirational teams in Miami and in Jacksonville. And the Niners have NFC championship aspirations with Brock. And not only that, he's been there with them twice. He deserved more money than both those guys and didn't get it.
What's funny is, if your biggest complaint is, well, we should really look at just last year before we make any bold choices on what this guy should make. What year are you looking at to get to $55 million on Trevor Lawrence? He doesn't even have the year that I'm not supposed to care about now, and then just focus on the bad year. Like, Trevor Lawrence is being paid for shit that hasn't even come close to happening. If your argument is Brock has been paid for things that won't happen again, at least they happened.
They happened. And again, you like to say it. It's a line I've stolen many times. Walking off the field in overtime of a Super Bowl with the lead, I'm sorry, that does count for something. You lost a Super Bowl, but you were right there. You had the team there. You had the team in the NFC Championship twice. You won one of them. You were knocked out of the other one. Brock Purdy is worthy of this money for where he has been, and everybody judges the postseason more than the regular season, and Brock has those wins also. Plus, I want everyone to do this, and Damon, you and I didn't dissect it, and maybe we will next week. PFF put out yesterday or 2 days ago their list of the top quarterbacks in the league. And when we say PFF, I want everyone to understand, this is like your TI-82 calculator. PFF is essentially, when nobody knew what WAR was in baseball, PFF was putting together those numbers for football as well, right? Well beyond the QBR number, well beyond the passer rating number. PFF understood not only the quarterback position, every position in the league, they boiled down to a number. How can we actually categorize players and slot them in? You know, how do you take an offensive lineman?
No position is independent of the success or failure of another position. It all has to work together for any of it to work at all. So let's give the guy a benefit of the doubt for overperforming the work around him, or vice versa, not living up to the play around him. And yes, it's an algorithm that has produced a number, very difficult to explain, but we've all accepted as has some weight to it.
And go to that list. And you have to understand, this list does not take in a lot of opinion. This is just about numbers. Brock slots in at 11. So that's the worst case scenario. That's just taking numbers by what they are, and that's coming into this season. So that's taking into account that 2024 is nothing that we want to necessarily hang our hat on. So with that in mind, coming out of the 2020-24 season, Brock Purdy is at 11th. Which means there are playoff quarterbacks that didn't make it on that list ahead of him for what happened last season. Brock Purdy, in a year that stunk for the Niners, is still on PFF's list, essentially in your top 10. He's one out of it. And therefore, you need to look at that and understand the money, not only for things that happened in the past, but for what's going to happen in the future. And please, when you do your math, take into account the discount. You have to take into account the discount that Brock has been for a year you went to the Super Bowl, another where you went to the NFC Championship. You have to take that into account and say that 1 year is worth 53, but the one before that was worth 5.
Take into the fact that you get a little bit of a discount when you become a Love Rewards member. Get yourself signed up for Ike's. I don't know what you're doing for lunch. It is a gorgeous day here in the Bay Area. We got sundress conditions, Sammy, in San Francisco, California this afternoon. Get yourself to Ike's. Eat your sandwich outside. Go sit down under the old oak tree. Have yourself a nice little an iced tea, little bag of chips, which, of course, when you're signed up for the Love Rewards program, you earn your way towards free versions of those. So sign up for Ike's and our good friends at the Dubliner on how about this? It's a gorgeous day outside. At some point, it's going to be too sunny. You're like, I'm going to want to walk into a dark bar and watch the Knicks lose at home tonight. And go to the Dubliner. Go to the Dubliner in West Portal. Tell Kenny and John that I said hello. They love hearing from you. And if you brought your Hamantash in there with you, they just let you sit at the bar and eat it. Tell people where they should get their Hamantash.
It's really easy, everybody. Steta is a word that not all of you know, and I put it in the comments there. But steta is a word, Steta. Okay, steta means grandma. It's basically what I called my grandmother on my dad's side growing up. And in the Syrian
grandmother on your what's the male version of steta?
Steta and Jidda. Okay, steta and Jidda is Grammy and Grandpa if you grew up a Syrian Jew, as I did. So steta and Jidda. So steta, my Aunt Marlene is steta to cousins of mine, of course. Yes. So she's an unbelievable cook, and she bakes even better than that. And she makes amazing cookies called Hamantash, which you can find at Steta's Kitchen. Please do yourself a favor. Eat Steta's Hamantash. You will never be the same. It is just an unbelievable item. And thank you, Steta, for doing all of that, Aunt Marlene. We love you, and thank you for supporting the show.
By the way, thank you very much, Aunt Marlene. Yes. 49ers Red Zone going with Graham. I wish that I just called my grandma and my grandpa. I didn't have the cute little name. Of course, Chef A is going with Bubby.
Bubby. So so Jack and Ozzy, what do they go with for Grammy Grandpa?
Just grandma and grandpa.
Okay, that's good. So Allie's parents for Levi are Grammy and Gaga. He just started saying Gaga for Grandpa. Okay. And then my parents, whose name are Raymond and Marlette, are Ray and Marmar, which is kind of cute the way that happens. Cute. So there you go. It's enough about Grammy and Grandpa, but it is adorable when kids go with those monikers.
I'll tell you what, freaking Ozzy right now has figured out the power of mama, and he has Jillian just wrapped around his 3.5-year-old finger. I mean, he had her in the first place, but every time he drops the "thank you, mama," I mean, I can see her heart just, and I'm like, "Hey, what about me?" He's like, "Yeah, thanks."
Sup, dude.
Yeah,
sup. Yeah, you're not getting data. Not yet.
When it comes to Brock Purdy and the 49ers, this season just can't start fast enough. The vibes are good. It's all right feeling around this team. A year ago, it was a totally different vibe. You had the Super Bowl hangover. You had holdouts, hold-ins, bad vibes. Shanahan looked like he knew he was going into the season with the wrong defensive coordinator, and sure enough, he was. It just never fit. It never got to working. They're trying to figure out how do we make it sound like Christian McCaffrey is going to be active, and then declare him a game time decision as he boards a plane to Germany. You know, like, come on, like. Last year was a disaster. This year feels like anything but. And what I can't wait is for this guy to take the field again and just start shutting some people up. Like, that's what I really hope happens. Or, you know what? Maybe I'm totally wrong and he sucks, and everyone who said he was going to suck is everything he's done so far has been an illusion. And if that happens, I'll guess I'll report on that. I won't be trying to speak into existence the opposite of what I'm really seeing. And that to me is what bothers me the most about sports coverage, Brock's coverage, and just overall news in general. Forget about talking about what is happening. I want to lead with what I think should be happening. And
the beauty of having a passionate opinion is how much it will disappoint us if it goes the other way. Let's admit that our love for Brock. And you have to understand the love for you. You've covered this team for many more years than I have necessarily. I've been close to the Niners since '99, since starting my career in the Bay Area, but obviously as an Eagles fan. But it's exactly that. It's the idea that these two franchises have been so involved in who goes to the Super Bowl recently that I have this deference and this respect for what the Niners have done, because it has been a bit of an arms race. Obviously, it's in the division first, but outside of that, the Niners and Eagles have been, a fisherman sees another fisherman from afar. That's a line from Wall Street too, for those that don't know it. It's a great one. But the Niners and Eagles are sitting there. Lynch has got his binoculars out trying to see what Howie Roseman's doing, and vice versa. And if you look at these two off seasons, they're very similar, by the way. And of course, a lot of people are trying to emulate what the Eagles are doing right now. But the Niners and Eagles have been spotting each other for a long time, saying, we got to build this thing a little like you, because you end up in the games we want to be in. And in fact, we were in them together at one point a couple of seasons ago. Also, let's look at one other thing about where this came from. TJ Houshmandzadeh, who I like as a person and you do too. This story actually came to us because it was written as one of Brock Purdy's targets has TJ Houshmandzadeh as his personal coach. That's who Houshmandzadeh is to Brandon Ayuk. There is a relationship between Houshmandzadeh and Ayuk. That's what is a little dangerous about this, is that someone was smart enough to write the headline in a way that now made this about, is there chirping from the inside about who Brock is? Now, you and I like to say that that's not.
Look at it this way. Based on the amount of money that Brandon Ayuk is cashing in his checks, and I just saw a top 30 wide receivers in football, and that dude's name was not on the list. Now, if you want to say, well, he's not playing probably to Thanksgiving, and that's why he wasn't on the list, there was no asterisk that said Brandon Ayuk would be on this list, but for the fact he's not playing for an awful lot of this year. It was, here are the 30 best in the league. This guy's making over $20 million a year, and he is not on the list. So Brandon Ayuk, who it's amazing. This guy was a button the lip, lunch pail carrying, hardworking, didn't even know what he sounded like, made zero ruffle of any feathers up to his contractual fatwa that he had against the 49ers by, scrubbing shit off of Instagram and liking Jaden Daniels. But, and like he went from the guy who never said anything to the guy who said way too much.
And he also, though, now, so many people have circled this season as sort of the Jawan Jennings coming out party because of Debo heading out. But let's remember, this is actually about Ayuk. It's not, Jawan Jennings is going to be icing on the cake. If Ayuk doesn't end up coming out of this injury and establishing as number one eventually, then this season will not be going where it needs to. Brandon Ayuk needs to be alpha AJ Brown, Jamar Chase for this team to do what it wants. He has to be that guy. And in games without Debo where he was healthy, he could do that, but he's going to need to do that week in and week out. And remember, Ayuk's career started with, are we ever going to get what we want out of this guy? His career started with, we're not so sure this was the right draft pick. Let's be clear. It took a little while. And then, wow, Ayuk was every bit of it, and it clicked. And it clicked. As much as I want to say fantasy football doesn't matter, that's when it clicks. From a wide receiver position, you actually know by following fantasy football. Ayuk became an absolute asset in the fantasy football world. And that's when you knew, this guy's fucking for real. I mean, this guy is putting up numbers that make a difference in these games week in and week out. He did it with Debo and without, but a lot without. And now he's going to have to be that. So I don't know if Ayuk is actually part of this opinion, and I'm going to just assume for now that he's not. I'm going to say that Houshmandzadeh is independent. When Houshmandzadeh's on a show like this, I feel like he's independent. It's his opinion. This wasn't a whisper from Houshmandzadeh representing
like we got guys who played like about 8 to 10 years ago who still have numbers slotted into their minds that aren't realistic anymore, and that's a problem too.
They're also
given the inflation abacus to explain that, hey, $15 million 12 years ago is $20 million today.
And there's a little bit of jealousy. There is a
there's
little
lot
bit of that
talent.
also, right? I mean, look, Hushmanzada knows if he's signing a contract today as opposed to a decade ago when he was signing his last contract, he understands how much money there would have been. Had he just been born in a 10-year difference, he'd be making that much more money for his family. And he sees what guys that aren't at his level necessarily are making now. And that plays a factor when these guys are talking about millions and millions of dollars in regards to these contracts. But I don't think that in the building there's people that are doubting Brock. That's the confidence with you and I speaking about Brock is that we don't feel from the inside there is doubt. You can't tell me that anyone on the Dolphins right now has zero doubt about Tua being on the field. There is, I mean, and remember this, in the game that Tua was injured last season, he also threw 3 interceptions before that injury. So it's not, Tua's not just, oh, he's on the field, he's healthy, and now he's doing everything he needs to. No. There are games when you look at what Tua's doing, you say, ooh, we need a little more there. We need a little more there. And Tua, from a playoff standpoint, hasn't sniffed what Brock Purdy has done.
Speaking of needing a little more there, we have 180 people right now on just my side of the room watching us all live. We only have 48 likes. Thumbs up, boys and girls. It's real simple. You just boop. All you got to do is hit that. It helps the show grow. It helps the algorithm push us on out. Go ahead, comment, participate in the show, be a part of it. Thank you very much. Like and subscribe. Again, I'm a little brocked out. I got to be honest with you. I'm a little brocked out. We got other things to talk about.
We do. And by the way, just for everyone real quick, I want you to throw up the Niners schedule again. I just want everyone to get excited about what Brock can do. And you just put it up there because this schedule is every Niner fan sleep well at night looking at this and understanding the Niners season should be exactly where you want it to be based on this. The regular season should go in the right direction based on what you're seeing here.
You know how you get an invitation to a party? That schedule is a formal invitation to the NFL's postseason party. And I sure hope the 49ers RSVP. All they got to do, a modicum of health, they're winning 10 games. A modicum of just a slightly healthy football team wins 10 games. A banged up football team might win 10 games. A really healthy, all reporting for duty, this shit is clicking, could be 12 wins.
Ernberg.
Look at this.
He
pays to say it. He pays to say it.
I love you. I love you, Joe. I do. You know, just like you and I are committed to loving Brock, to be in the opposite camp and committed to it is great because we actually won't decide
that
this.
Was the football team you rooted for. Imagine.
The only positive there about thinking realistically that it's 5-12 going into the season is that you're happy with 6, 7, and 8 wins, right? Anything over 5, you're now smiling and saying, well, they did more than I wanted. And the only name we haven't said, and we're going to save it for next week, but Christian McCaffrey. This team is on another level if Christian McCaffrey is on the field.
You are literally doing the show that I did yesterday with John Chapman saying that we have so just not discussed
at all.
Basically haven't even brought up the fact that Michael Jordan's not playing for the Bulls tonight. Do you think that might affect the game?
And I'll take an example from my backyard here. The Eagles, why the Eagles win the Super Bowl? I mean, in that game, the defense was amazing. But in the totality of the season, the Eagles won the Super Bowl because Saquon Barkley was #1 fantasy football draft pick worthy of a season. That's the difference.
Saquon Barkley had one of the, I think, 10 greatest professional seasons that the NFL has ever seen. Like, that's how great that year was.
And I would argue if you take the run through the Super Bowl, it is the greatest ever. It is the most rushing yards anyone has ever had if you include the postseason. And he won the Super Bowl. I mean, I'm sorry, like, what goes better than that? He also had he had 7 60-plus yard touchdowns this season. I mean, what?
All against the Rams in one quarter.
They 4 of them are against the Rams, 4 against the Rams. But so my point is not Saquon. My point is running back. What was special this past season? Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry took those teams to another level when you look at how they put offensive numbers on the board in the regular season and even in the postseason. Christian McCaffrey is that. No one Saquon Barkley, no one said this was the offseason signing when it happened for Saquon Barkley. They're like, oh, maybe the Eagles will get something out of him. Maybe he'll show a spark of what he used to be. McCaffrey's an exact.
Maybe.
Right.
He'll have a good game against the Giants, and on that day, the New York Post is going to unleash a headline, and that's going to be embarrassing, but it's not going to change everything. No, it changed everything. And Bazzi Mian is right here. Chiefs sold out to stop Saquon and couldn't stop anything else in that Super Bowl.
That's what it does. Just to put that in your brain as a defensive coordinator now, and Christian McCaffrey it's just someone you have to account for on the field in every moment. And without him, wow. Let's at least give credit to what he's done in his career. And not just, this isn't, oh, McCaffrey was good in Carolina. No, he was record setting with the Niners. It was very.
We were using his name in the same sentence that included Jerry Rice.
How about this?
There you go.
It's the same example. Saquon and Derek for 2024 are what Christian McCaffrey was for 2023. It's the same thing. It's an addition that happened that fell from the sky and landed with a team that could make a difference, whereas Carolina couldn't and Tennessee couldn't and the Giants couldn't. And then the Niners and the Eagles and the Ravens squeezed the most out of that because they could surround it with exceptional talent. Yep. That is what the Niners have. What a gift, and you're going to see that difference this season.
By the way, speaking of what you got, can I please get a check to Stata's link?
Yes.
Haven't had any luck with Google search.
Here we go. All right.
Connect on Sammy's site either, so we got to get that right.
Yeah, I'm going to get it right. I will get it to everybody. Yes, we are making that happen. Thank you so much, and we will get you to Stay at Us Kitchen.
By the way, bang, bang. Why is TJ Hushmanzada dissing Brock? Again, I think there is an element of maybe he doubts the guy a little bit. There is another element of these shows are built to generate outrage more than they are to further, a proper discussion about a sport. And that is my problem with so much of sports media.
Leave the comment up there. I want to make it simpler than that, Damon.
Go ahead.
Because he plays quarterback.
There you go. You want people to watch your show, talk about a quarterback.
He's a quarterback in this league, and there is a lot of I've said this many times. It's coping with losing that is what you and I do. So we are essentially therapists for sports fans, for ourselves as well, for each other, right? But I mean, it's a community of losing. There are so few fan bases that are happy at the end of a season or even throughout a season. And the only way to appease that pit in your stomach is to win it all. So the percentages are stacked so far against you. And this is about dealing with losing. And what happens is you start to slot these quarterbacks based on the losing and the winning. And we're coming off a season where the Niners were obviously lost more games than they won considerably. And they were in the Super Bowl before that. And there's talk of the Super Bowl hangover. And it's losing on that level where you're at the Super Bowl. And think about it. Was that a success? Was that a successful season? Losing in the Super Bowl? No. Everyone thought it was a disaster because you
wildly successful football season. It's an incredibly successful football season. To lose the Super Bowl still means you had a really good year.
The amount of teams you have to be better than to lose in the Super Bowl. Think about how impressive it is to run through the NFC the way that they did. It was incredible. And coming off of a season where you're losing in the NFC Championship, which, by the way, there's also a hangover to that. Getting to the championship game and losing, that's a kick in the nuts also. It's tough to get back there the next season and to go and then not only say we're here again, we're winning it this time. That's a big fucking deal. Ask the Lions, by the way. Lions lost a heartbreaking NFC Championship game. I don't remember them in the NFC Championship game this season. It's not so easy. You don't just chalk it up. And they had a better regular season, but it doesn't matter. So the reason that we talk about Brock in this way is because not only for these shows, but just for us, we're all coping with the losing, and we have to slot these quarterbacks in regard to what we think they're going to be. And Mahomes is on the top, and he's really the only guy that no one's got a massive argument about.
By the way,
spreading
the negativity around the entire backfield. Joseph says CMC isn't even going to be a top 5 running back this season. He's old as fuck. All right. Well, look, dude, why are you a Niners fan, Joseph? I mean, seriously, if you don't like the quarterback, the coach, the running back, why are you still here? Why don't you just go root for the Arizona Cardinals? If you'd like to see what it might not work out looks like, Go be a Cardinals fan. Go try it on for size and tell me how bad you got it, how much you're suffering being a 49ers fan, you fucking pussies. Hand banana. I just need a break from 49ers talk to say fuck John Fisher. Always.
Okay,
Yeah, it always feels right. It feels good. It just rolls right off the tongue. Thank you so very, very much. Okay, so let's go. Again, Mr. Joe. No, it doesn't, Damon. A successful season is winning the Super Bowl. Again, you've never been in a fight. You've only bought a bumper sticker. You're T-shirt tough. You've never been in a huddle. You've never played a sport. You were raised by, look at it this way. Did you grow up in a loving household? If you didn't have a mansion, I bet you did. You know, it's just insane to me that people only understand one thing about sports. Break finish line. It's cross finish line first. Good job. Don't cross finish line first. Might as well be left. I mean, it's the Ricky Bobbying of sports talk. I mean, you sound like a child. Get the name out of, get the Mr. out of your
Yes.
avatar. Get the Mr. out of there. Just call yourself Joe Wish Upon a Star.
And I'm going to bring this to the NHL for a second because it was a beautiful quote I saw last night. Rod Brindamore is the coach of the Carolina Hurricanes. They lost in the Eastern Conference Final to the Panthers, who, by the way, are going back to the Stanley Cup Final for the third straight season, which is epic for them. They lost in the Eastern Conference Final, and he started his press conference after he took about 3 minutes of questions, and then he said, "How come nobody in this room is asking us about the tremendous season we just had?" And it was so refreshing to hear him say that, because it really does it. Like it's sort of the scratching of the record, you know, like all of a sudden
Right.
it like gives this incredible perspective. You look around and you go, wow, yeah, everyone's shitting on him for these little specifics, which happened within, you know, the third period of Game 5 where their season ended. And they lost in the Eastern Conference Final. So they're one of 4 teams in the NHL. They're the Carolina Hurricanes. Okay. So this is not like, I mean, this is not the Red Wings, the Maple Leafs, the Oilers. This is not the New York Rangers. This isn't a franchise that defines the league, the Blackhawks, right? This is not an original 8 team. This is the Carolina Hurricanes. And he's saying, we're in the Eastern Conference Final. We just lost to a team that, by the way, in 3 straight seasons has only lost to one other team.
Look at it this way. New York Knicks probably have 1, maybe max 2 games left in their season.
Sure.
And then as soon as it's over, everybody's going to be dumping on the Knicks and tell you what Karl Anthony Townsend can't do. And Karl Anthony Towns, excuse me, not Townsend. I'm thinking Chris Townsend. I'm still in the fuck John Fisher mode. I'm thinking A's. But you know, they're going to dump on Brunson. They're going to dump on Cat. They're going to dump on Thibodeau. And everybody's going to be just as pissed off as all the years where they didn't even make the playoffs. The Knicks just gave all of you a hell of a ride. By the way, I will say this too. I always thought Knicks fans were tough. The truth is, Knicks fans are nothing more than a bunch of Instagram thirsty preening schmoes. They really are. Like, there are like 12 really hardcore Knicks fans. Ben Stiller and Timothy Chalamet are 2 of them. Spike is another. So now we're down to just 9 of you fucking guys. And what a bunch of clowns. What a bunch of attention-thirsty clowns their fans are, where they're more interested in filming themselves react to a shot than watching the shot.
I'm so upset with that, and I'm upset with the idea that the Knicks, who have not been at this place, I mean, for the Knicks to have beaten the Celtics, it's by far the most significant wins they had are the 4 they put together against the Celtics. It's the most significant wins they've had since 1999, and I hope that will be celebrated. And instead, it's going to be that they lost to Indiana. That was in their way from getting to the NBA Finals, and it did. And by the way, beating Oklahoma City feels insurmountable for the Knicks also. I can't imagine how they would do that. But again, all of it's still possible. But remember, this is a tremendous season. And like I said, we're here to help you cope with winning. But when your team makes it this far, and we're talking about the Niners the past couple of seasons, not last season, I get it. You know, it's an extra month of time you have with your team that another fan base doesn't have. When your team is winning 2 playoff games in the NFL, this is another month of time that your team is allowing you to care about them in a significant way. It is so much more than other fan bases are given. You have to understand that. And I get that you're a franchise that has won championships, but you don't win it every year. And later we'll talk about the Patriots a little bit, and I'll show you just things that do not happen in the world regularly. But just appreciate Joe Montana's not your quarterback. Steve Young's not your quarterback. Trey Lance is not your quarterback, and you're in the Super Bowl. What Brock Purdy has done is save you from where you really should be. Other franchises make mistakes like Trey Lance, and it's a decade of trying to get back to the playoffs, and you're in a Super Bowl. You were in a Super Bowl. So I can't even say anymore.
Another thing that I just think he does beyond playing well is he does the media game really well. And that is a huge part of tamping down distractions and knowing how to talk. And we're going to have some examples of a young man figuring that out early in his career and an old man maybe having one of the single most perfect podium answers of all time.
So
I don't know about Joe Flacco being an elite quarterback, but answering a question in an elite way, stepping off a practice field, is something that veteran knows an awful lot about. But I want to start with Caleb Williams because he was in the news this week. There is a Seth Wickersham book coming out called American Kings, the biography of the quarterback. And one of the things that is coming out in the book is that Caleb Williams and his father were considering ways to circumvent being drafted number one overall the same way that, well, you could say like Shedeur Sanders, not that he was going to be the number one pick, but the same way that the Manning family didn't want Eli going to the San Diego Chargers at the time. There was doubt.
John Elway.
Teams, there was doubt in the Williams household that being drafted by the Bears number one was going to be a good thing for him. And this is going to come out. And of course, this brings knives out in Chicago, blah, blah, blah. And to me, it is the polar opposite. My reaction was, well, isn't it great that he completely understands the team history? Because there is no more bumbling, fumbling, guaranteed to fuck that up NFL franchise than the Chicago Bears as relationship to the quarterback. You can make the argument statistically that there is no team in football that has done a worse job at developing that position in the history of the NFL than the Chicago Bears. The Jacksonville Jaguars, the just got here Houston Texans have all had 4,000-yard passes. The Chicago Bears have been playing football for 600 years. They go back to Mesopotamian days, and there is no one who's thrown for 4,000 yards with the Chicago Bears. And it's not just because there's a lot of winter in Chicago. There's a lot of winter in Green Bay too, but they figured it the fuck out. It is a blind spot over decades of the franchise's history. And this young man, knowing that this book came out and there's all buzz, he is about 4 minutes in front of the podium yesterday where he basically says, yep, we were concerned. And then I came in here and I met people and they alleviated those concerns. Any Bears fan, and I grew up a Chicago Bears fans, know that besides some of the dopest ass uniforms in the sport of football and wonderful sepia tone memories that officially end in 1985. That's all the Bears have. The modern version of the Chicago Bears, they are the Florida Marlins of the NFL. They suck. They are terrible. They're bumbling, stumbling, gonna fire the GM, gonna trade the quarterback, gonna move on from the quarterback, gonna replace the offensive coordinator, gonna replace the head coach. Now we just the cycle just over and over and over and over and over. And it's fucking insane how bad Bears football has been. And for Caleb Williams to have been concerned by that, you'd have to be a moron to not agree with that young man. You were correct. You were right to be trepidatious stepping into this situation because it's officially been good for no one.
Here's the beauty of this. You're gonna talk to Larry, I think, before I am, Larry Krueger. And Larry Krueger doesn't like Caleb. He doesn't think Caleb's gonna lead the Bears anywhere. He's convinced that Caleb's just not the guy. And, I wondered myself if it was because of Jaden's outstanding season that maybe, we're comparing Caleb to that. And right now it's difficult, but I'm going to, and you should, ask Larry if he's seen these 4 minutes. I think these are 4 minutes that would change anybody's opinion about Caleb Williams. And here's why. Caleb Williams wasn't even asked a direct question when he got to the podium about this. And he simply said, I want to talk about something.
Right. I am going to bring about an end to this distraction. I'm not going to let you dictate what's going on here. I'm going to address it head on.
He also didn't lie about the most important part. He said, yes, I had a very good conversation with that team over there, Minnesota. So this is essentially someone admitting in Ohio State that they spoke with Michigan about being with them instead. Okay. Right. So, these are teams that don't like to discuss each other. Packers don't like talking about Bears. Vikings don't like talking about Packers. This is this is in the division, direct, just knife in the heart. I could have been with Minnesota. I'm with Chicago. He admits that in such a stand-up way that you have to salute what Caleb has done here. And let me remind everybody this, even if what Wickersham writes is exactly true, which is that they were considering the idea of maybe playing in the United Football League or going somewhere else instead of Chicago. So there was a thought of maybe doing that. Can I explain the difference between you in life of maybe doing something, considering it, and actually doing it?
Yeah, there's a big difference, right?
Eli Manning refused to play for the Chargers. The Chargers didn't draft him and then make him play there. There was exactly 40 seconds in our lives where we all thought, wow, what balls by the Chargers. They're going to draft. He said he didn't want to play there. They're going to draft him. And 40 seconds later, we hear he's been traded.
Right.
So he is drafted. He has a hat somewhere. That I want that hat, by the way. That's the hat I want in life. I want Eli's Chargers hat that he had from the draft. That's actually what I really want to get. All the Chargers gear he got immediately. I want that. Although it's probably gone to Haiti at this point. But my point is this. Eli Manning, even though he won 2 Super Bowls and is a Hall of Famer, and he did it in New York, that as far as douche moves by a family in the league, Eli actually did it.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams, this is a book about something Caleb Williams thought about. He's a Bear. He just played a seat. Like, there's no question, right? Caleb Williams is the Bears quarterback, isn't he? Is he the Bears quarterback? Mm-hmm. He's the Bears quarterback. Was Eli Manning the Chargers quarterback? He never was, because his family said, fuck you, we don't want to play for one of the 32 franchises. What Caleb Williams did, and you said it beautifully, is he said, okay, let's look at where I could go and what my career will be if this happens. I am projected to go number 1. That number 1 is tied to Chicago. What will that mean for me? He's collecting information that's going to affect the rest of his life. Any of us would do that. If we were considering a job somewhere, what are we not looking at what the company has done? Are we not looking at who our bosses are going to be? Does that not play a factor at all in what we're going to do? Of course it does. And he didn't say, I don't want to go to Chicago because it's cold and I'm used to being in Southern California. He said, there hasn't been, and he said it yesterday in his 4 minutes, there hasn't been a 4,000-yard passer here. Yeah, right. I'm thinking about that.
Kids who thrown for 4,000 yards. I mean, it's
look. I'm wondering about that. It's two smart things. He considered what will be around him to create success in his career in this league, which we all know is fleeting because NFL stands not for long, because if you don't take advantage, you're bounced. So he knew that, and he was smart in saying what he did. We are in May, not September, and he is going to say this at a very quiet time in the season. Guys, I just want to get ahead of something. I talked to Minnesota. Of course, I talked to a lot of people that were all, anyone who was in position to draft me, I spoke to. We had a great conversation. The guy just won Coach of the Year. Like, yeah, we respect Kevin O'Connell. Like, is that saying a lot? No. Right. The whole league respects him. Look what he just did with Sam Darnold. So, yeah, he had a great conversation with them. No shit, he did. And in Chicago, he also had a good enough conversation to say, you know what? Yeah, I want to be the number 1 draft pick here.
Right. But here's the thing, just to prove to you that Caleb was onto something, the guy that he had that great conversation with has already been fired. He had his offensive coordinator changed by like week 11. Everything that Caleb Williams was worried about the Chicago Bears being, they were.
They lived up to their end of the bargain.
They lived up to their we will fuck this up reputation perfectly. They nailed it. And all I can tell you is that nobody's raking Ben Johnson over the coals. Ben Johnson comes out there just last week. He's talking about, yeah, I need to change the perception of this franchise and that position specifically because we look like the have not figured it out yet. Like the entire league's perfected the forward pass. We're still running T formation. Like we look like clowns.
This is the single
because you are all throwing tunnel screens from 1994 and think that this is modern offense. You guys are clown shows.
This is the single most impressive NFL performance of Caleb Williams' career to this point.
To this point, yes. Yeah.
On tape, we talk about what you put on tape. What Caleb Williams has put on tape through a season last year, there are games where he was very good, but what he did for 4 minutes this week at a podium is more impressive than anything else he's done.
Look at it this way. He had a nuclear bomb of a story sitting underneath him. He diffused the bomb, totally diffused it. This is now, it won't even be a topic. They won't even be talking about this tomorrow on the score in Chicago. It's done now. And when you can just nip something in the bud and prevent a small spark from becoming an NFL equivalent of a forest fire, that's a good day at work, Mr. Quarterback. It really is. By the way, Christopher says, go yell at the sky, Ernberg. Everyone be nice to each other. And if you really want to yell at each other, just make sure you do it with a super chat. Thank you very, very much. Yes. Now, since we're talking about quarterbacks meeting the moment at the podium.
Oh, well, this is good.
I want to take everybody here to Cleveland for one of the single greatest answers you will ever hear from a quarterback who, again, has been around the league long enough to know, that's a landmine. I'm not stepping on it. This is Joe Flacco. Is Joe Flacco an elite quarterback? I don't know. But this is one of the most elite answers you have ever heard from a dude who's just walking off a practice field and is asked, Shedeur Sanders is here. They drafted 2 rookies. Are you out here competing? Are you trying to be a mentor? And here is Joe Flacco again, sound courtesy of 92.3, The Fan in Cleveland.
It's a talking point. You can kind of use it because it's a good question to bait somebody into answering, and no matter how they answer it, it kind of makes the guy that's answering it look bad. If I say I don't want to be a mentor, I look bad. If I say I do want to be a mentor, then I look like an idiot that doesn't care about being good and playing football. So it's one of those questions that no matter what I say, you guys can write what you want to write about it. And there's a lot of questions like that. That's why you end up having to try to avoid them. I tend to try to be honest. And I've said I'm not a mentor. I play football. And in a quarterback room, there's a lot of times there's been a ton of times where there's learning experiences. And I have a lot of experience and I can talk on things. And hopefully they listen. But it's not necessarily my job to make sure they listen to me. And hey, hopefully you have a really good relationship with the guys that are in the room, and you naturally want to do that, but that was a long-winded answer, but that's ultimately why I think you guys ask it, Here's the thing is because of what I just said, you're acting like I wouldn't want to be a mentor. It's once again, it's not really about that. It's just not the main focus. I see myself as a guy that can play in this league. So if your main focus was just hey, but I'm going to get you ready, you're just not taking care of business. The best way to be a mentor, honestly, is show people how you go to work, and like I said, hope that they pick up on that stuff, but not necessarily force them to pick up on the things that you do.
How great was that?
Joe Flacco just got hired. I just want everyone to know that. Not as a quarterback, but for whatever position he wants on your coaching staff moving forward. The day he decides that maybe throwing the ball is not in his best interest anymore, that right there will represent him the rest of his life if anyone doesn't know what he did on a football field. Joe Flacco, again, you talk about a diffused bomb and what Caleb Williams did. And Joe Flacco also did it. And remember, Joe Flacco's walking on more of a landmine than Caleb in regards to what's in the quarterback room. Because the biggest story still, from a quarterback standpoint in this league right now, is whether or not Shedeur Sanders is going to start at some point for the Browns.
The number one selling jersey in the NFL right now, Shedeur Sanders.
And what Joe Flacco is asked there is ultimately, is he being a mentor to Shedeur Sanders? I mean, that's the headline, right? Whatever he answers there, no one's saying, oh, what, he's being a mentor to Kenny Pickett. No. He's being a mentor.
Right. This has got nothing to do with Kenny Pickett. You're so right about that.
This headline is Joe Flacco is or is not a mentor to Shedeur Sanders. That's what this story is. Flacco didn't even mention his name there. Okay. And not because he was trying to do something special. He's talking about the room. And what's beautiful about what he says is that he puts it on the reporter. Okay, I understand this can be a hot button. In other words, he's not calling it. I understand why you're asking it. I understand where it's coming from. That's okay.
But what are you going to do with the answer that I give you? Are you going to run with it as a positive, honest, refreshing answer? Or are you going to try to crucify me as the guy who doesn't want to lean back and pull the other guy up?
And what's gorgeous about what he says, and for a Browns fan, this should be incredibly, incredibly enlightening. He wants to play. And I think that really is so important here. Joe Flacco right now is probably, I mean, if the league starts tomorrow, isn't Flacco your starting quarterback? I mean, certainly if it starts tomorrow, Flacco is the guy that's most equipped to go out there as your quarterback. You know, Pickett will pick it up quickly, but neither rookie at this point, I'm not saying anything dramatic here, neither rookie at this point is ready to go out there. Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders are not ready to lead the team week 1 today. That's without question. Right. So Flacco's going to be your guy if it started right now. And when he's being asked that question right now, he knows that. And he's saying, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm not treating myself like the starting quarterback. First of all, that's who I was 2 years ago for this franchise. And remember, he also was in Indianapolis last season. He saw the shit show of the quarterback room with Anthony Richardson in it. Okay. Right. And he wasn't there to mentor Anthony Richardson. The Colts were a playoff team potentially when Flacco came in to start games that Anthony Richardson could not start because he was taking himself out of games. Okay. I mean, that's the catastrophe that he was around.
And the thing that is on full display here, and this goes back, I guess, to our original opening discussion of Brock and sports media and what are those sports media even trying to do these days? They're just trying to, how about this? Instead of running with the truth and having a little attention paid to it, they would much rather distort things and have a lot of attention paid to it. Kenny Pickett, it's funny, we were just talking about Kenny Pickett, I thought just the other day, he came off a Browns practice field and he was asked about like, hey, how's it going for you? And he basically said things are really off to a great start here. And this coaching staff has done a wonderful job setting a daily expectation and coming out and we know what we do. And immediately it was, well, does that mean that you didn't think that that's the way it was in Pittsburgh? Was Mike Tomlin a bad coach? Was it, and it's just, it instantly goes to how can we take what you just said, add gasoline to it and make it burn? Because what you just told me sounded like, yeah, things are going well and it's all competent and that makes a shitty story in my newspaper. So we need to turn this into former Steeler shits on former situation. That's what it was turned into. And he basically went out there and was like, what the fuck? I just said that things are going well here. It had nothing to do with over there. And it's just, I really do. If I were a professional athlete, I would do my mandatory media moments, and then I wouldn't give a thing because I wouldn't trust any of them.
What I would do,
anybody.
What I would actually do, I look, there is a seminar for broadcasters in the league, and there's seminars for the players as well, sort of, how to behave throughout the season. I mean, it's a lot of like, call us if you're drunk and don't drive your car. Like there's a lot of that. But I feel like these two statements, what Caleb Williams said and what Joe Flacco said, should be a part of next year's seminar for players, not just quarterbacks, but for players. Provide the context, provide your own context to your answer. Set it up and take the time to answer once in a while, long-winded, so that you will never be taken out of context because you will have much like what is Shannon Sharp? This is going to be, follow me on this path. What does Shannon Sharp want right now? He wants the entire sex tape out there because he's saying that you're cutting up a certain amount of it that makes me look a certain way when me and my ex-girl are going at it. But the totality of it will show you something much different. So don't let this lawyer go out there and give you, a few minutes of what happened between us when if you look at all of it, it's not nearly as strange. He wants to be able to control that by having all of it. And what Joe Flacco and Caleb Williams have done is they've said, here's all of it.
I always have wanted the full sex tape out on me as well.
Look, it's a shame. We can
all relate to that.
We really can. And there's many minutes of it. I mean, look, let's be clear, right? This is not a short
tape. It's 7.5 minutes. And
I mean, this is like worthy of an intermission for sure. So But my point is, and I'm sorry for going down that long path about it, but I want you to understand that that's the difference in the world. That's the difference between, again, context is so important to understand the totality of something. And what Caleb and Joe did is they provided all of it. Joe saying, "What the Browns didn't call me and said, you want a mentor here? I'm not the quarterback coach. I'm not. Right. I'm not the quarterback coach. There may be a subtle difference in a year. I may very well be that, but that's not what I am right now. I took this team to the playoffs 2 years ago. I'm here as a starting quarterback.
Right.
And the guys behind me
I'm going to lead by example. If you want to have a mentor, watch him. pay attention to the way this guy works. The veteran in the room is probably got a few habits that you should start picking up on. And that's the way to go. I mean, I guarantee you, I would hope that if they turned around and said, hey, Shador, is this guy mentoring you or not? He would say, well, yeah, he's mentoring me just by showing me the routine of a professional.
And by the way,
what I'm trying to emulate. I'm trying to emulate the routine of a professional. This isn't about and then he brought me to lunch and asked me if I was having a good time.
How about he could also say, and I think it was in 2012, I don't want to get the year wrong, but he could also say, yeah, you know what, he was a great mentor because I just looked at the 2012 season when Joe Flacco was doubling down on himself for a contract and played himself into a Super Bowl MVP. How about that when he beat Peyton Manning and then, of course, Colin Kaepernick with 4 chances from the 4-yard line to win a Super Bowl, and Flacco actually won it despite the lights going out. I mean, Flacco was unbelievable in that season. Flacco's got a Super Bowl ring for a reason, and no matter what you think of Flacco now, this is not a coattails Joe Flacco that went on that run. They had an amazing defense yet, but Flacco out-dueled Peyton Manning in a double overtime game. Joe Flacco was one of the greatest seasons as a quarterback in the history of this game.
He had one of the great postseasons. One of the single greatest postseasons, and it culminated with him beating the 49ers in the Super Bowl.
So please remember that. Joe Flacco's a mentor to every quarterback in this league. You know why? He's one of the dudes that won a Super Bowl. Every quarterback in this league wants his season to end the way Joe Flacco managed to make it happen once. And if you do it once, you know what you are forever, the rest of your life? You're a fucking champion. And Joe Flacco is a champion at that position. And nobody has ever said that the Ravens offense is something worthy of talking about. Those teams, right, they're supposedly led by defense. I understand now with Lamar and Derek, yes, different story. But Joe Flacco was outstanding at the most important position.
One last NFL story. We got 1.5 NFL stories.
Yes.
Tyreek Hill is trying to sell anyone in Miami that he is a reborn football player. And you know what? I hope he is. Because as a football player, the guy's absolutely spectacular. As a person, it is a less than situation. He owes it to the Miami Dolphins. He owes it to himself to get his shit together. He's always been a questionable dude, fantastic football player, 8-time Pro Bowler. And it's funny, a lot of people will say, hey, he got traded from the Chiefs. They keep going to Super Bowls. So it really wasn't him. Well, let me tell you, it's hard for a wide receiver to be the leader of a Super Bowl movement, but he has done all you could ask a wide receiver to do since being traded to the Dolphins. He's led the NFL in reception yards. He's already said he wants 2,000 receiving yards this year. He had 959 last year, the worst of his career. He was also in a situation where he didn't know who the quarterback was going to be week in, week out. Tyreek Hill is kind of a little bit of a douche as a human being. He really is. But as a spectacular football player, and look, he says he now has a better understanding of what Mike McDaniel wants. He said that he's been going to church more and therapy more. And here's the deal. This is church, therapy, whatever you need to be a calmer person, be more introspective, go do that, because what he basically says is, I used a little bit of this offseason to strip myself of this massive ego, and I'm starting to look around my team and consider what's going on here from their perspective, not just my perspective. What do I need to do to be a better teammate? Every player in football, every player in sports needs to have this moment. And, I don't say this very often. Good for Tyreek Hill. I'd like to see him return to form. He's one of the most fun players in all the sport to watch. It sounds like he's found a little Jesus and he's lost a little weight. So there you go. Think about drafting Tyreek early this year.
This is what it comes down to. Tyreek Williams is the best player on the Dolphins. I mean, Achane could be second, but Tyreek Hill is the biggest difference maker in this year. The biggest difference between peak Tyreek and other players at that position in this league. Tyreek sets more distance between him than Achane does with other running backs. Okay. Tyreek is that good. Tyreek can be the best receiver in football when he wants to be. And he was for seasons with Mahomes, of course, and with peak Tua. This is a conversation about Tua. This is a conversation about Tua. And my point about, I hate to bring Brock Purdy up again, but this is because Tua is making too much money for what he's bringing to this team, okay? And Tyreek is actually being honest about it. He's not saying it, but when he says, I'm out of here at the end of last season,
right,
it's because he knows. He knows that his best days with Tua are behind him and not ahead of him. He also knows he only has so much time left in this league. And if you really want to wish for something, Damon, let's not wish that Tyreek wins over his teammates in Miami. Let's wish that Tyreek gets to play in divisional playoff games, in conference championships, and in Super Bowls, because that's where we want to see Tyreek Hill. We want to see the best players on the biggest stage. The biggest mistake that we'll have for Mike Trout's career is that we never got to see him win a playoff game. We never got to see him play in a championship series and in a World Series, because the Angels did not put enough around him to get him there. That's it. And that's a shame. We want to see these players in these elite games. And when we saw Tyreek playing in conference championship games and in Super Bowls with the Chiefs, that was the most fun for all of us. Let's take Tyreek out of the fantasy football only conversation, put him in the football conversation. We want to see him in those games. And guess what? He's not getting there with Miami, and he knows that. And so he subtly, not so subtly, drops the idea that he wants out. And for those of us that don't want to read further past it, you can think, oh, okay, they fucked up at the backup quarterback position and they didn't put enough out there, and Tyreek could not make a difference without Tua there. And you want to say, oh, well, Tua could be that guy. Part of Tua's story is that he's not on the field. Part of Tua's story is that he's not there. His job is to be on the field for these years that Tyreek is elite, and it's not happening. And I'm not saying it's Tua's fault. It's just reality. And for these players, this league is a bottom line. I have so much time to be this good. Tyreek's not going to be faster than everybody for his entire life.
Right.
His name is Cheetah because he's faster. The difference that he makes, does he have a great route tree? I'm sure. Does he create separation? Yes. Is he great going over the middle when he has to? Absolutely. Is he amazing? But what is the key
to the success is faster than you.
Fucking fast. And he's not going to be elite fast. I mean, think about it. He's the fast. He was the fastest in high school. He was the fastest in college. But to be fastest in the NFL, you understand that difference? You understand how fast you need to be faster than guys that are in this league? And he is right now, and he may be for 2 or 3 more years. I want to see Tyreek out of Miami. I'm out of here good. I don't need Tyreek in Miami anymore. I saw the best of it already, and I'd rather at this point, I'd rather see him teamed up with someone else amazing. You know what, frankly? You know what I'd rather see? If
49ers could use the wide receiver.
Absolutely, but guess what? You want exciting for this season? If Rodgers is going to join the Steelers, get me Tyreek there. You thought you had a headache in Pickens. Good luck with Tyreek. But you know what? Get Tyreek there. Let's see that happen. That would be interesting to me. I want to see him with a path to beating teams that he actually can. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not even it shouldn't even be AFC. His path is probably in the NFC and not the AFC. In the AFC, no matter where Tyreek goes, can we see that team beating Buffalo, Baltimore, or Kansas City? Not unless he's part of one of those 3. So maybe that would be interesting. And maybe Lamar. How about Lamar and Tyreek? How about that? Has Lamar ever had a receiver at that level?
No.
I
don't think so.
Show me that.
Well, last story, because you just invoked his name. You talked about Aaron Rodgers maybe getting to Pittsburgh. I really don't know if this guy wants to play football. If he did, he's going about it in a very odd way. I just saw that Terry Bradshaw doing some radio interview basically said, bring him in for 1 year. Are you kidding me? The guy needs to stay in California, go somewhere and chew on some bark and whisper to the gods out there, which is a great line from a pretty much useless at this point in his broadcasting career, Terry Bradshaw. That guy needs to be pulled off of a television set. He adds nothing at this point. But that was a great line. Ian Rappaport said earlier this week, it wouldn't be a surprise if Rodgers did sign with the Steelers. Tick tock. We'll see if it all happens. Let me ask you a much different question than the one you think I'm about to ask you, Sam. Who in sports is more desperate for attention they don't really deserve? Aaron Rodgers or Angel Reese?
Oh, that's a great one. Okay. So for purposes of tipping my cap to the WNBA, I want to say this much. I am impressed with the WNBA for now being a part of traditional sports conversations. I just want to say that if if I had to bet my life 5 years ago on the WNBA or soccer being a part of traditional sports conversations moving forward, I probably would have bet on soccer. I would have assumed that the star, the sort of the Ronaldo, Messi superstardom of those types of players would outlast. But you know what? The WNBA did it. The WNBA.
There's no fooling Christopher. They both have AR initials.
That's brilliant. So I'm going to say that Angel Reese has more significant, serious headlines at this point because she's in a league and she's an elite athlete in that league. So I'm going to give her that credit.
She's so angry.
She's
so jealous. Oh my God.
And it's unnecessary. But the fact that, I mean, good for Caitlin Clark for putting this on the map the way that it has. And we have to give her, she's the one that crossed this over for everybody.
But here's what they need to see. So the Fever are playing the Chicago Sky in Chicago. And when Caitlin Clark, before she pulled her hammy or quad or whatever it is, she's out for a couple weeks, those tickets were going for big prices. Your get-in price now to go see Angel Reese's team is $6. So Angel, don't pretend that you are on the same level as Caitlin Clark. You might have played some big games together. Your names have appeared in headlines together. You are not equal, not even close. The league moves on without you. The league without Caitlin Clark doesn't make today's headlines at all.
The words don't come out of our mouth, and they do with her, and she's done that. She is the crossover, and we can give her that credit. And frankly, the rest of the league should be thanking her. The rest of the league can thank Caitlin Clark for that, no matter what you think of her game. So that being said, for that AR, let's move to the second AR in this conversation, and I would rank them, yes, 1 and 2. Angel Reese 1, Aaron Rodgers 2. Those are your AR rankings for the day. Okay, Aaron Rodgers. It's upsetting to me because I still wish this was a conversation about Minnesota and not Pittsburgh. Okay. I see Aaron Rodgers as a divisional playoff participant in Minnesota, and I don't in Pittsburgh. And that's just math. That's just because to me, you're going to have Joe Burrow is going to be healthy through an entire season. Your path in the AFC, first of all, in your division is Pittsburgh, right? You got to either hope that the AFC North produces 3 playoff teams, which has happened. But your path is, are they going to beat out Cincinnati or Baltimore for the division title? It's not going to happen in Pittsburgh with Aaron Rodgers. That's just not happening. So I don't have the excitement level, just like it wasn't happening in New York with the Jets. They weren't going to beat out the Bills. It wasn't going to happen. And that's that.
You are right. And that's the way Aaron's got to be looking at it, you would think. But if you're the Steelers, you want to talk about it ain't going to happen. Right now, your quarterback room is Mason Rudolph, Skylar Thompson, and 6th-round rookie Will Howard. I don't like Aaron Rodgers very much, nor do I think I would want him on that team. But if you told me your options are this poo-poo platter of it's never happened or Aaron Rodgers, I'd be like, well, fuck, all right. Just bring that douchebag in here. He can throw the ball still a little.
You know what conversation I hope's happening? And later in that same interview, Bradshaw brought up Kenny Pickett. He thought Kenny Pickett got a raw deal the first go in Pittsburgh. He just thought he wasn't surrounded by enough on the offensive line, surrounded enough with offensive weapons, etc. I actually hope that at this point, because of how long it's taken with Rodgers, and by the way, Rodgers said, don't wait for me. I mean, if a girl tells you that, what are you doing? If a girl says basically, don't wait for me, you're finding another girl, right? Don't wait for me. Don't wait for me. What? Don't wait for me is goodbye. That's a nice way of saying this isn't happening. So Rodgers is telling him to find a better option.
If you said, hey, Damon, let's do a show together tomorrow. And I'm like, yeah, you want to do it at 11 o'clock? And you were like, yeah. And then I was like, but don't wait for me.
I mean, what am I promoting that you're coming on to them? Don't wait for me. Don't wait for me means this is over. If you propose to a girl and she says, don't wait for me, what does that mean? I'm saying don't wait for me is goodbye. So if Pittsburgh's holding on to that, which they can, I really think, look, Cleveland's not going to be able, we just talked about it. Flacco, Shador, Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett. There's enough there that Cleveland is going to be somewhere that people know they can maybe snatch a quarterback for this season. They've got 4 good options at quarterback. We don't have to call them great, but they have 4 good and interesting options at quarterback with Shador, Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, and Joe Flacco, which means one of those 4 could become available. For Pittsburgh, who has a good history with Kenny Pickett, he actually won more games than he lost for them. Mike Tomlin knows him for better or for worse. That would be a better path forward.
I would think so too.
Kenny Pickett is certainly, first of all, he's going to cost you less. He's got more of a future potential upside there. He's got a good history there in the division and in Pittsburgh.
I mean, the move on's already happened. When you moved on, it's tough to move back, right?
It is. But again, look, Flacco's back in Cleveland. These things do happen. I'm not talking about Rodgers in Green Bay. This is Kenny Pickett in Pittsburgh. I think you could mend that fence. And as much as Terry Bradshaw may say wild things, which he does, it was very measured. If you go and read Terry Bradshaw, Kenny Pickett right now, read about he liked him out of Pitt. He had an idea that Kenny Pickett could do something in Pittsburgh that he never quite got to. And maybe that would be more interesting this time around. It's easier for me to picture other guys at this point with success in Pittsburgh than it is with Rodgers. And it's just because you can't erase for me what happened over the last 2 seasons. It's hard for me to picture. I want to see Rodgers. I remember the 15-1 season for Green Bay, which, yes, they lost to the Giants in the divisional round. But there is a level of Aaron Rodgers, which is, I'll never get it out of my mind. As confident as he was with the football and what he could do, throwing off of either leg. I still think he's better than Mahomes. Rodgers throwing off one leg is the best I've ever seen. What Rodgers can do, flicking his wrist on one leg, moving either direction, is still the most impressive thing I've ever seen.
It's one of the greatest arm talents in the history of the position.
And there's people that are listening and watching us right now that don't even have a recent memory of Rodgers at that level. It just, I mean, to be injured to miss an entire season without throwing the ball, that's a lot. Then to come back, and there were moments with Devontae Adams last season where you saw it, and you said, look, Rod, you've said it. You've said it. Rodgers gave you 10 games last season, half a season, definitely, where he was better than a majority of quarterbacks in this league. But I just don't see it in Pittsburgh that way. I think the division is too difficult, and I just don't love the way it's set up. I liked his familiarity in the NFC North, and I thought Minnesota was just a ready-made situation. Darnold for Rodgers felt like that was great. That was like one more season to capitalize on this epic roster that they've got in Minnesota. And of course, with Jefferson and Addison, I loved every bit of it. DK could be amazing for him, but I understand what Terry Bradshaw's saying. I really do, because for him, it's embarrassing. It's his franchise. It's embarrassing. And he didn't bring up the line I did. Don't wait for me is probably what upsets Terry Bradshaw the most. You're telling the Steelers, I'll let you know when I know. For a franchise at that level, for a premier franchise in this league to be told, I'll let you know when I know, especially coming off the last 2 seasons that he had.
Look at it this way, Aaron. When we write the history of the sport of football, there's going to be a bigger, thicker chapter about the Steelers than there is going to be about you or any team you played for. That's just the way it is. It's
just the truth. And give him credit. He beat the Steelers in the Super Bowl. I mean, I'll give him.
I mean, Desmond Howard certainly did.
Certainly. So this is, man, I'm so euphoric, Damon, that I hate when I have an idea in my mind of what something's going to be and then it doesn't turn out that way. And so for me, it's like the Jets, what I wanted, I thought the Jets would compete with Josh Allen, with Aaron Rodgers, right? We all did. Like before those 4 snaps where he then goes down on that Monday Night Football game 2 seasons ago, it's like we all could dream of a place where the Jets were going to compete to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. And then it was so far from that it makes me sad.
Well, yeah. No, I mean, to me, he's always got that Green Bay stink over. I've never rooted for Aaron Rodgers a day in my life. I love the it didn't work out portion of the Rodgers experience. I really do. So that's just, again, I grew up a bitter. I look at it this way. I grew up rooting for a team that has never produced a quarterback a fraction as good as Aaron Rodgers. So is it jealousy? Is it a lot of ugly, dirty things that come out in me when yes, I've got bias. There's no doubt about it. Let me tell you what the networks have bias about this upcoming NBA Finals, because it really feels like we are about to get, look, it's Knicks Pacers tonight. Knicks facing elimination at MSG. This could be the last game ever broadcast on TNT if the Pacers win it, because that relationship ends, obviously. I think the Pacers, if not tonight, they are going to close out this series. I think we're about to get the did you trade Paul George NBA Finals, where it's Thunder Pacers.
That's great.
Trading Paul George got both these teams to the NBA Finals, and signing Paul George got the 76ers to what, a 22-win season or whatever they just had.
Oh, this was abysmal. I mean, let's pair the most injured guy in the league with the second most injured guy in the league. That worked out pretty well.
Right. And you know, at what point do we admit, you know, Daryl Morey is really not as good as anyone ever fucking said he was? Is there anybody who is, you know, going to lunch on the James Harden trade 15 years after it happened more than this guy? Anyway, it looks like we're about to get OKC versus Pacers, and I'm good with it. Now, the argument would be random Wednesday night, Oklahoma City, Pacers, you watching? The answer is no. But it wasn't the NBA Finals. I don't care.
Totally different conversation. Totally different conversation. And let's make one thing clear: what the NBA did, and credit to whether it's Stern or Adam Silver, and we'll credit Adam Silver. He's the guy with the job right now. You know what this league is no longer about? What city your team is in.
No, I would agree.
The NFL can still put a Steelers game on and it matters no matter what, right? The league, like the NFL still has that, where the Pittsburgh Steelers will still matter no matter who their quarterback is, no matter what's happening. That's going to draw something. It creates a fervor because of what that franchise means. The cities in the NBA are irrelevant because of how much the stars matter. And let's boil this down. I'm going to take this in an alternate direction. Don't tell me Oklahoma City, Indiana won't matter. And we'll just take the Knicks out of it. And by the way, I think the Knicks could have a Messier moment where they come back in this series.
No, there's no one's coming to save this team.
Okay. So I'm rooting for that just to make it more interesting. But let's just have the and I want to say this, by the way. The most unpredictable and wide open Final Four we have had in the NBA in the last 20 seasons was this year.
Without a doubt.
Without the fact that, listen to these NBA Jam pairings that are not in the Final Four. You had Luka and LeBron playing together. They didn't sniff the Final Four. You had healthy Jokic and Jamal Murray. They didn't reach the Final Four. Giannis had Damian Lillard with him. They didn't reach the Final Four.
We didn't records at the end.
Yeah, you're right. But okay. Record-setting Steph paired with playoff Jimmy Butler. They didn't make the Final Four. This is and Jalen and Tatum, obviously an injury, and the Celtics did not make the Final Four. This is so unpredictable. This was the most unpredictable Final Four. Forget about the fact that they're one seed and that Shea is the MVP. Forget about that now we say Ant-Man like it means something and it meant something to everybody all along. The Knicks were never supposed to beat the Celtics or be anywhere close to this, and Indiana's just rarely on the tip of our tongue. But back to my original point.
In the grand scheme of things, did the Knicks really blow it by not getting it done? That's the way people look. Cleveland got knocked out. Boston got knocked out. All of the Jokic, like you said, Denver got knocked out. LeBron, Luka got knocked out. No Steph Curry to worry about. Like, there really was a path, and this year's champion will be. How about this? I don't care if the Knicks do come back and they go to the NBA Finals. Guess what's about to happen? There will be a champion at the end of this season that has never won a championship in my lifetime.
And that's
last championship was 1973. I was born in 75. So there you go. You get a never in my lifetime. Unless you are 53 years old, you're not getting a title that you've seen before.
Which is pretty awesome.
I like that. I really do. I think it's great. It's good for the game.
I wanted to just say this, my last point, the stars. So this is remember, SGA is the MVP. So this is just, Halliburton is going to be a superstar if he wins one more game against the Knicks. That's what he is now. That's the difference here in what happens.
Not very overrated anymore.
He is a superstar, as is SGA, and we will see two superstars, and the NBA is now infusing two more superstars into their soup for the next season. That's the brilliance of this league.
The Thunder are so set up for a bright future. All the assets, all the flexibility that they have right now. Yes, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is about to get a boatload of money, but you know what? This is a guy you want to give a boatload of money to. Number one, he just helmed one of the single most impressive, least discussed, awesome NBA seasons of all time. The Thunder just ran roughshod through the entire sport for 6 months, and nobody really even noticed. Number two, in terms of how great is he really? How great is he? Well, how about this? Players to have had 30 points and 4 assists in at least 7 straight home playoff games. Here's your list. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander right now, Michael Jordan in 1989, and Jerry West in 65.
I love that you said it. The only team ever in the history. So remember, you just put him on that level with Michael Jordan. The only team ever.
He did.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But thank you for reminding us all. The only team ever in the history of this league to lead 3 playoff games by 30 points at halftime in a single postseason are these Thunder. Congratulations.
They're good. They match up. They got problems. They got a second legitimate scoring option. They got big. They got wings. And they have 55 tradable assets coming up in like the next handful of drafts. It's insane. By the way, Craig's Kitchen coming in for $5 in the ganja jar. How the 49ers got all the money for these players? The sale? Hey, let's go. I'm pumped for the football season. Yeah, man. You had to get a little bit more liquid cash. So you sell off a little bit of your franchise. You'll never miss it. Put all that money in escrow, and all of a sudden big contracts are about to happen. Yeah, that's selling off bits of teams are about to look. Roger Goodell's not very happy with the way that some teams are circumventing some cap numbers, and the 49ers are the most guilty of every single team of the shit that Roger Goodell hates right now. So that will be, I guess, next week's show, because you, Sammy, got to get rolling, and we have history to discuss. Are you ready?
I'm so ready. I am so prepared. Thank you so much.
We always start with happy birthdays, and I'm about to bring you back to 2 massive names in the 90s. Happy birthday to Mel B from the Spice Girls.
Wow.
Gravity-defying breasts in the wannabe bouncing around the club commercial, the video. She's 49 years old. Mel B still got it. There you go. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want.
And please watch the Beckham documentary series on Netflix with Beckham and his wife speaking about their life and his journey. It's just, you will fall in love with Victoria all over again. And it's
well, this is Mel B. This is not Victoria.
I know that.
Okay.
I know that. But just from a Spice Girls standpoint, I'm just telling you, this is just so beautiful to go and relive what that was and what the Spice Girls were.
Warm spice. It's like a nutmeg.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. But
we never had nutmeg spice. You think nutmeg spice, especially
nice.
like with the soccer, you kick the ball in between someone's legs. Nutmeg. They're from England. You think you would have gotten a nutmeg spice. Anyway, happy birthday. He's 40. The Cuse is in the house. Oh my God. Oh my God. Carmelo Anthony. And I will always say this. Carmelo Anthony is, I think, a player that gets, because he never won the title. He gets lost in the great conversations. Carmelo Anthony in person was one of the smoothest, most imposing, intimidating scorers you have ever seen. If you never actually saw Carmelo Anthony play in his prime with your own 2 eyes, you didn't get it. Like, this guy was a bucket for a while. He was so good.
And again, what that run was for Syracuse and with Boeheim, that was so special to watch him as a freshman with what went down there. I will always love him for that. But the greatest line ever about Carmelo Anthony came from Colin Cowherd, which Carmelo across the league, when he saw Carmelo, dapping guys up at the end of games, and there was always LeBron and Melo sort of like almost being together, but never quite. He always said, Carmelo's the friend that you say, hey man, we totally got to get together. And then you never do. Like, the guys that really wanted to win in the league were never really trying to pair up with Melo, because it never really got to that point, right? What he did in Syracuse is undeniable, but in the league, he was a guy that scored a lot. He's an incredible Olympic player, but in regards to really building championship metal, hey man, we totally got to team up. We totally got together. Yeah, we'll make it happen eventually.
Well, that's what happens when you pound the rock for 22 seconds of a 24-second shot clock. So happy birthday to Noel Gallagher, 57 years old, from Oasis. They were huge, without a doubt. And a man who is huge right now. The Pirates should trade him. Think about what would be the return that you would get on Paul Skeens, who turned 22 today.
Wow. Do you remember when Garrett... Do you remember when Garrett Cole came up with the Pirates out of UCLA? I remember when Garrett Cole was going to be, and look what he did it with New York, not with Pittsburgh. But I love it when the Pirates have a generational player like that. It's better for baseball. I love.
I think it's going to squander him. Everything that you're seeing with the Pirates is what will be should the A's actually ever get to Vegas. At no point in time, with their new stadium and new revenue streams, will they actually reinvest it in the team and try to get good. I don't trust John Fisher. I don't trust the Pirates. They should trade Skeens right now and get the single biggest haul in the history of trading anybody in Major League Baseball history, is what you might be able to get for that guy. We got to move along because we got to go way back for this one. Today in 1453, Sammy, we're going back. Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire, fell to the Ottomans. I mean, did you have the Byzantine Empire in the points that day? Because the Ottomans took them out. They really
the odds were stacked against them. And the fact that Ottoman now for most of our audience means something we put our feet on is just hilarious.
Society, the Byzantine Empire, which is like the dying of the Roman Empire. Constantinople moved the headquarters of the Romans out of Rome, put them in Constantinople, which, by the way, do you know what geographical position on the map Constantinople is right now?
No, well, no. I'm gonna spin the globe. You tell me when to stop.
Istanbul is Constantinople.
Constantinople is in Istanbul, and Constantinople.
Somebody blame it on the Turks. Okay. For over 1,000 years, their society reigned as the most dominant society. And in 53 days, the fall of Constantinople happened. Big day. Historically, the fall of Constantinople. That's a big one.
Huge.
Look it up, kids.
Well, as far as dynasties go, trust me, look into that one.
You're gonna want to check it out. Oh, speaking of dynasties, do we have a little David Andrews time?
We'll give it 90 seconds here. Hats off to David Andrews. I believe Monday is the day that he'll actually be hanging it up.
We'll get to that at the very, very end.
Yep.
Let me real quick. Today in 1948, happy birthday to Wisconsin. Wisconsin became the 30th state of the union today. Today in 1953, the summit of Mount Everest was reached for the first time ever by Edmund Hillary. Can you name his Sherpa?
Hillary's Sherpa. I don't. Give it to me.
Because you've probably been around you picked something up and I would have been like, nice job, Tenzing Norgay. I got Tenzing Norgay jokes for anyone who wants them. The greatest Sherpa of all time, first ballot Hall of Fame Sherpa, Tenzing Norgay and Edmund Hillary summited Mount Everest, 29,032 feet today in 1953. Today in 1999, Discovery became the first space shuttle to dock with the International Space Station. That's impressive, as is the National World War II Memorial that got dedicated in D.C. today in 2024. And that is your day in history, with an appreciation of things that are just designed, Sammy, to like never, ever happen again. And with that, I need to share this screen.
Well, I'll set it up a little bit.
As we talk about the single greatest moments of the New England Patriots dynasty, not a lot of people are going to bring up center David Andrews, right?
So on Monday, David Andrews, who was waived by the Patriots, he's going to officially have a retirement press conference. He is the last piece of the Patriots dynasty. And there really are two dynasties within this because there's sort of two realms, as you'll see, but 01 through 18. I believe Andrews became the center in 2010 or 11. But I want to remind everyone. So Belichick and Brady, obviously long gone. Everybody's gone but Andrews. He's the last piece. And on Monday, he will say, peace out, forget about it. I want everyone to look at the run of terror from 2001. When did he join the team? He was, I believe, 10 or 11, but I still just want to say the totality of the dynasty goes back to 01. All right. 2001. I just want everyone to follow me on this. From 2001 to 2018, we're talking about 18 seasons of football. Look here, go type in Patriots football reference and look at the season finishes from 2001 to 2018. For those that want to know what a dynasty is, this Patriots team from 01 to 18 was in the Super Bowl 9 times. We will never see this ever again in any sport.
You sound like Ed Rooney from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. 9
times. 2018, 2001 to 2018, 9 Super Bowl appearances, 6 championships. They only lost Super Bowls to Eli Manning and Nick Foles. What an unbelievable reign of terror in this league, and you won't see it in sports ever again. 9 Super Bowl appearances, 18 seasons. Thank you, David Andrews. Thank you to all of the New England Patriots. Wow, that's all I got.
I mean, they lost 4 conference games. 9 Super Bowl appearances, could have actually been 13, but they did drop a few AFC title games along the way. I'm sure, Joseph Ehrenberg would have called them massive losers in that moment.
They lost 9 Super Bowls?
Oh my God. Well, they never lost 9
No,
Super
no,
Bowls.
no. They lost 3 Super Bowls? What losers?
Yeah, right. Joseph, we kid, obviously, to all of you in here today. It is great to have you. Thank you for coming on back. I love these shows we do with Sammy. Make sure that you are subscribing to his YouTube channel along with this YouTube channel. Check it all out. eat at Ike's, drink at the Dubliner West Portal, and get yourself some Status Hamantash.
Yes.
We need to officially, how about this? Next Thursday, have that link in the order slip up, ready to go. We need to make that happen officially.
1,000%.
Thanks to all of you for watching. If you don't drop a like on your way out, why would you do that to us? Haven't we been working hard on your behalf? Hasn't this all been free? All you got to do is hit a thumbs up. That's all we're asking for. Like and subscribe, our good friends. We thank you. And please do remember that sports don't build character. They reveal it. And like that, they're gone.